I want to tell you the story of not one, but two viral Instagram reels I made for a local business. I'm going to show you all the stats, the gear it was filmed on, and some of my editing tricks. But we'll also go beyond the numbers, and I'll break down why I think these reels were so effective and what this kind of social media success actually does to build a business.
So the business is a remodeling company, so this is residential construction, nothing really crazy. And the Instagram account is very small. We're talking right around 2,000 followers. It's been a few years since it was started. You know, we post consistently. It's very active, but not really high engagement on anything. I don't think we had any posts really cross maybe between 40 and 60,000 views in total. We filmed a couple of dozen shorts that are all basically this same format, which you'll see in a second, which is just our people and reps from these companies showing cool new products that people could be installing into their homes. So I'm going to let this play a little bit so you can kind of watch it while I'm talking about it, but you can see some of these numbers are pretty awesome. We've got 22,700 likes, 346 comments, 16,200 shares. These are just absolutely massive numbers. I'll click through to view insights here, and we can see just a little bit more. We've got another 11,000 saves. Total views is 1.99 million. I'm sure we're going to cross that 2 million mark at some point. Instagram Insights is not nearly as good as YouTube Analytics, that kind of stuff, other platforms, and it's a little harder to read. Like, they're a little cryptic sometimes with the metrics, but there's some stuff here I do want to talk about. This one is interesting. Under watch time, you've got view rate past first 3 seconds. This bit is really just about how good your hook is. Like, are you getting people interested right away so they can stick around and watch? We're looking at 72% almost. So we've got almost 41,000 interactions. Pretty interesting. You notice that's almost all non-followers. It was a small account, so that explains it. This is a tremendous reach, especially for a small business and especially for a small Instagram account. So the cool thing is that since we filmed a bunch of shorts in this similar format, we actually had some success after this as well. I'm going to scroll up here and we're going to look at this one. And this one is at 1.4 million views right now. And another 14,000 likes, 249 comments, 12,000 shares. And it's really the same format. It's our people plus a rep, on the show floor presenting a cool new product. There's a couple of elements I'll go over while we talk about the editing and why I think this worked. 4.9 thousand saves on this one, so not quite as many, but still, again, this is just an absolute blow up. This would be as big a post as we ever had if it weren't for the others. One that I just showed you. Same thing here. We're looking at 70% on the view rate past 3 seconds. So high engagement, high interest. That's really good. So that's the kind of numbers you dream of when you're putting content out there. And when we made this series, this was kind of the idea. Is we're going to swing for a home run as much as we can, and we got 2 out of it. So of course, this has been a huge boon to the account in general. We've got now a lot of other posts that are getting traction, not like quite as much, but a lot more than we were getting before. I would say every post we do now has a lot more attention on it than they would have before. Maybe we're getting a few hundred, now we're getting at least a few thousand. So that floor is kind of lifted. And then we've got some other successes. We've got a 30,000 view here, 168,000 here, 68,000 there. So there's definitely a lot of carry-on effects in terms of viewership and interest when you kind of hit the algorithm just right. Now I want to talk about exactly how I shot this. I shot this on my trusty old faithful A7 III. This is a Sony full frame camera, and I shot it with the Sigma 14-24, so a nice wide angle lens. This is maybe not a lot of people's first choice for shooting people and events, but this is a lens I already have because I shoot a lot of like real estate style, architectural interiors. I know that when you're at a trade show, something like this, you're going to be wanting to capture a lot of context, but you're going to be in sort of enclosed spaces. There's not a lot of room to be like, hey, I'm going to be like, 18 feet back here pointing my 50mm lens at you. You're going to have to be pretty close to people. So a wide angle lens is going to help compensate for that, capture more stuff. So to make vertical filming work, I have this very nice run and gun setup. I've got the cage on the A7 III and then a small rig grip on the side. And this is like as compact as I can get it. I knew we'd be filming all day, and this is something I could basically like shove in a bag as a whole bit. For audio, we recorded with the DJI Mic 2. Of course, that comes with 2 mics, which is great. So you got one for, our guy who's doing kind of the interview part or playing the host. And then we've got one that we can just take the little magnetic clip and just stick it on a rep real quick and record for a couple minutes. Like I said, this is run and gun. You just get in there, film the content, get your B-roll and get out of there because we've got, 20 more of these things to do. Next, we're going to hop over to Premiere Pro. God help me, I hate Premiere, but it's what I use to edit this stuff. And I'm switching over to Resolve at some point, but here we are.
This is not going to be an editing masterclass by any stretch. I just want to show you a few specific things that I try and do when I'm editing short form content, and maybe just a little bit about my general workflow. First things first, like I said, this was shot on a mirrorless camera on an A7 III. And so because of that, editing on a computer is the best place to do it. I know that you can get a lot done on a phone. This is just how I do it here. I shoot everything in S-Log2 on this camera, and then I use phantom LUTs for color correction to get it this nice kind of palette. That's most of what you see here, all of what you see here is all done with phantom LUTs. Something else when you shoot with older cameras like the A7 III is that they don't automatically change the aspect ratio for you, so you're going to have to do that in post. I make myself a little preset that does color correction, scaling, and the aspect ratio, rotates everything. So that's just one quick step for me. So from the top, this is our intro. And you'll notice we've got our text on screen. We've got the arrow here. I've got a little sound effect happening. There's also dialogue. I just have that part muted for now. And to me, this is going to be the most important part of the edit and of the video because this is my first 3 seconds. You'll notice when I place the play at about here, that is the 3-second mark. Instagram is basically telling us that that's the most important part of the video. This is the hook. This is what's going to capture attention in the first place, and we got it right on this particular short. All I've got going here is really nothing advanced. I've got text, and you'll see under the properties panel here, I've got a little shape that's behind the text. That's just for clarity. The text itself is has a little animation. It sort of wipes in like that. And then I've got this arrow that pops in as well. Of course, the corresponding sound effects. And the arrow is just a graphic I got from Motion Array. It also has a slight animation to it. I just want to say this is not rocket science. This is me stealing ideas from YouTube thumbnails, but we'll talk more about that in a second. So after our first 3 seconds, I'm cutting away. I'm cutting away to our host. This is the guy who was talking during the intro. And then immediately after that, I've got another fast cut going right to the rep who's actually showing the product. One of the things I really liked about filming at a trade show like this is that these reps are really good at actually demonstrating the product. They're not just like sitting there awkwardly. They're going to tell you about it and they're going to show it to you. So you'll notice I actually don't have any cutaways for a bit here. This first bit is just a little bit of camera work for some movement, and he's actually showing the product, how it works. He's explaining it. Like, this guy was good enough. There was no need to cut away for this first bit. Immediately after that, though, I do start cutting, right? I've got, you can see quite a bit of B-roll overlaid here. And I just want you to kind of notice how simple this timeline is. Making this wasn't complicated. The edit wasn't complicated. What it was effective. And cutting away to B-roll, in this case, mostly B-roll that's actually explaining what the person on camera is explaining, is really effective. Of course, I have captions going the whole time. Never, ever publish a short that doesn't have captions. I don't care what it is. Always captions. People watch short form content with the sound off all the time. So captions. Last thing I want to talk about in the edit here is I'm always going for shorter rather than longer in terms of just total length of the video. This one is close to a minute. I try and keep a lot of what I publish down to like 30 seconds, or at the very least, I keep everything down to no more than it absolutely needs to be. The most important thing about a video is the actual content. It's the topic. It's what's in there. But editing is what presents it in such a way that it's digestible. So it is a utility, but it's one of the most important utilities. This timeline, like I said, not complicated, not fancy, not flashy really at all, but what it is effective. The focus here is always on the storytelling, and it's always on moving things forward every second of the video.
Now I want to talk about why I think this really worked and what made these couple of reels super effective for a small account. Number one, by far, is the fact that these are just general interest. Not that you can't do niche content. You can. Niche content does really well all the time, but there's something to be said about a piece of content that appeals to a really broad audience. While remodeling itself may be kind of a niche thing in a niche industry, and this is at a trade show you've never heard of, the idea of a barn door in a house or a glass shower door are things that are very familiar with everybody because everybody's used them at some point. What these videos are kind of doing is giving that general audience sort of a new take on something that they already understand. So I feel that that really helps as far as getting that real viral, widespread. Lots of people want to interact with it. It definitely helps that these are two examples of things where people kind of had some opinions going, oh, I like this, or I really don't like this. So the engagement really comes from that kind of interest. The next thing that I really feel like we nailed is the hook. I said when we were looking at the stats that we had a very high rate of views past 3 seconds. And I think we owe a lot of that to this two-part hook. The first part is purely visual. This is going to be the actual image, in this case, of the barn door. And then we've got the text on screen and a little arrow pointing down at it. I work a lot on YouTube thumbnails, and it's just like a proven YouTube fact that thumbnails that have a nice short kind of juicy text with an arrow pointing to, a nice convincing image, that's a good thumbnail. What I did is I just adopted that same psychology and just animated it and made it the first few seconds of this video. And I actually did that with all the reels that have done really well for us. They all basically follow that format. The concept is really simple to me. It's just remove as much friction from the brain of the viewer as they're scrolling along. As soon as they look at this thing, I want them to be able to understand what it is that they're in for with this video. Second half of the hook is now going to be basically audio. So I did actually have dialogue happening as soon as the thing opens up. I've got our host talking, but as soon as that visual hook cuts, it goes to our host and he actually says this is a concealed hardware barn door. So you've got a strong visual hook, strong audio cue, and then we jump straight into the content and we don't waste any more time. We go right to the guy presenting, showing features, explaining how it works, all that stuff. I don't think you have to be frenetic when you're editing, but you do need to get to the point really quickly. I really feel like that first sentence, that first bit needs to be something that is at least interesting. When it comes to short form content, you want to think of them like a news headline. In journalism, everyone talks about don't bury the lead, right? What's the most interesting, what's the most juicy part of the story? Put that in the first paragraph so people can understand right away what it is that's interesting about this thing. You notice we've got a lot of B-roll. I didn't film anything particularly cinematic or amazingly beautiful. This is stuff that's just telling the story. I've got some close-up details, some wide shots. I've just made sure that I got a lot of coverage of how this product works. And you'll also notice that I actually don't have any jump cuts in this video. There's no rules against doing jump cuts. They can totally work. I just feel like it's a smoother viewing experience. You've got, okay, let's cut to B-roll. Let's cut to a wide angle. Here's a closer up of the talent. There's just something about that style that was developed for decades in TV editing and in movies that really works and I think still proves effective now. The last thing I want to mention here is that these reels had a strong tailwind because they were a part of this trade show. So we've got the location, Las Vegas Convention Center, that's tagged in there. We've got the fact that it's part of an already very large trade show. So there's a lot of buzz online, a lot of people talking, other people posting. So just a ton of interest already. And then we're also making sure that we're tagging these vendors and making sure that we're kind of collaborating as much as possible with the businesses that we're dealing with there. Those things definitely seem to create a lot of avenues for other people who don't know your content to actually find it. Finally, let's talk about what this ultimately did for the business. The most obvious one is we now just have a much wider reach with our Instagram and our Facebook pages. I think at this point, we've almost tripled the number of followers on the account. I know followers don't mean as much as they used to, but it is a pretty good metric. And certainly the amount of engagement we're getting is just getting people familiar with the business at a scale and at a rate that we just couldn't before. So is that reach yielding more leads? And the answer, as far as we can tell right now, is yes. Now, it's not been like an explosion of leads, but what it has been is from a organic social lead that comes once in a while to now 1 or 2 in a week, which is a lot better. So I don't have like all the exact numbers on that yet. We've only had this stuff really out there for about a month, but I can tell you we've already seen some genuine impact on the business. You got to keep in mind that what this business is selling is a very high ticket item. A lot of times people are only going to buy something like this once in their life, maybe twice. And so every lead is very valuable. I'm really confident that the impact of these couple of reels and all the attention we're getting right now is going to have a much longer tail. I know this because even past posts and past things we put on social media that didn't get a lot of traction, we'll find out that somebody saw them, knew about the company, and then a year later, 2 years later sometimes, that's when the time comes for them to do a remodel and they come and do business with us. And it's thanks to the efforts of the marketing from beforehand. All right, if you found this helpful or if you have criticisms or insights that you want to offer, I really do want to hear about it in the comment section. I'll be down there hanging out, responding to people, so let me know what you think.